Okay, we are live now.
Awesome. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of DESIGNathon. How to get a job is the basic theme of the day, from UX to AI, how to pivot and get work. Uh, I'm here with my awesome co-host, Manaz Hodges Smiley. She's so smiley. And our amazing panel is here to tell us their stories of how they went from design to AI work. And it's pretty amazing how wildly different the stories are. And I will share my own story as it's completely different from everybody else's. And let's kick off with everybody introducing themselves. Let's start with you, Erica. Tell us about you.
Yes, hello. My name is Erica Flowers, and I am presently working for the Insulet Corporation on the Omnipod diabetes pump, and I'm new to that. I'm new to that role, and coming in as a principal service designer, and the world of med tech has so many opportunities and new spaces to apply kind of like human-centered design and thinking and strategy. That's all new to me, so I'm learning a lot there. And infamously, I was ejected from the civil service at NASA, where I'd been working the previous 2 years as one of their new digital service experts, where very fortunately I got to be a part of the brand new institution of the Office of the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at NASA, which was a new function. And I spent almost my entire last year at NASA helping strategize their AI readiness plan on how to bring AI, like consumer grade, like off the shelf AI, into the agency, and like understanding the use cases there. So that I'll talk more about that later. But it was very fortunate to be able to be a part of an organization starting their AI journey, kind of fresh, and to be there for the whole thing. And then before that, I had worked for a few years at Mural, doing like AI smart canvas stuff, virtual reality experiments with Meta. And right at the tail end of that, we had even experimented with having AI powered VR workshop facilitators. I'm not even kidding. I can talk a little bit more about that too. But really, I mean, in the context of the podcast, I'm just an AI enthusiast and see tons of opportunity and tons of ways that this is going to change kind of everything that we do at work and at home. And we're not even close to prepared or have an understanding of what that's going to look like.
Thanks, Erica. That's awesome. I can't wait to hear more, especially about NASA and VR and all that interesting stuff.
Yeah, me too.
All right, John, let's hear about you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm John Leach. I am currently working with Aspirant Digital. We're a boutique digital consultancy that works with B2B companies to develop better user experiences, smarter automation, and scalable digital platforms. Prior to that, I worked for PNC Bank. That's kind of how I got into AI. I actually worked on a project using AI for cash forecasting to predict what a cash flow would be for a client over the next 30, 60, 90 days. And that was my first foray into AI. And then since then, I've adopted it heavily in the work that I do as a UX researcher and strategist. Every day I'm using AI, a different tool. And I'll get into a little bit about that. And I also work with an organization called Habits for a Better World. And I volunteer with them. And we're looking at how we can create an impact on the world through effective behavior change. And I led a team looking at generative AI, specifically on the amount of energy that is used to process all of the information that flows through it, and also the water resources that are being used to cool the data centers. And so, yeah, I've been working with them for better part of a year. And we're at the point where we're actually getting to the point where we're going to have a new product that we're hopefully going to launch at some point in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. And for those of you who are missing our girl, Yadi, she had a last minute thing to take care of, but we love you, Yadi. Next time we'll get you back on a different episode. How to be awesome like Yadi episode. So Erica, let's go back to your story. Kind of tell it. I mean, you're the best storyteller, so I'm not even going to try and tell you how to frame your story. But I think most of our listeners are just trying to get work. So if you could speak to sort of how you started in design and landed in AI, and whatever fills in the middle section between those 2 points, you go for it.
Well, okay, so I started in a way that doesn't help anybody. I mean, I'll give like the 10-second version, but I mean, people ask that now, and my youthful good looks betray my actual age. But I started like I was getting paid by the hour to be a web designer, cutting up GIFs and writing HTML full time as a high school dropout in 1998. No skills were required. None of this existed. I can't like CSS like wasn't even really like deployed as a thing. There was no like point to anything. And so I was like pre Y2K building websites and graphic design. Like all of my interests, I was like a computer addict ever since I got my first computer when I was like 15. And then at 17, I was working like full time after like leaving high school, just using like Photoshop 3.5 and then cutting it up and putting it into HTML with a layer Cold Fusion Studio. And then I just kept getting jobs and works ever since from there to there to there. So how like people get into it now, I don't know how people start now. I don't know how that advice would translate, because I was a teenage like computer nerd hobbyist who, instead of learning how to program, I learned how to do graphics and then put them on the web. And so if we like fast forward to the skills of today, I mean, it's May 31st, 2025. I wouldn't even tell people to like learn how to do those skills, like the skills of being like an old web graphic designer, like whatever, HTML, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that was kind of all replaced a few years ago when tools like Webflow could recreate HTML and CSS and all that better than a person. So I stopped doing that. I was a design technologist at Intuit for a few years, and I was once a vice president there, called me the CSS czar for this entire company. This is a multi-billion-dollar company, and I was like the CSS czar at Intuit. I should not have been, right? But then we even quit doing that because
why not? Why should you not have been?
Because I was not that good, and like, but everyone else wasn't either. And so, but like, so like learning, but like I learned, I wrote the mobile responsive grid for all the QuickBooks platform. I wrote like the actual code, the actual SCSS, put it into React, all that. It's all useless. No one needs to learn any of that anymore. Like no one should be learning anything. Even like the Figma, all the stuff that's like, those are all old-fashioned tools.
Oh, be careful, like, Erica. Right, the Figma people will get you. They love their Figma.
They don't hire well, okay. That's great, but it's not what's going to be relevant, and everything's going to be Figma is going to move. Like if you people don't have to abandon Figma, but Figma is going to abandon you, because Figma cannot outspend and outcompete the zeitgeist of AI removing all of this. And so why do you think Figma is releasing 5-year-old product features and copying web, like whatever? It's like they're scrambling. Everyone is scrambling because we're not iterating on tools. This is a step change. I was just writing about this last night. Coal gas lanterns lighting up streets and electric lanterns both light up streets, both go up on poles, both have the same job to be done. But telling me that it's like, yeah, but you could take all your knowledge as a coal gas lamplighter and apply it to Edison style electricity. It's like, no, you can't. You can't do that. And so I see it as being much more about mindset, upskilling organizations, understanding problem framing, and like developing fungible skills separate from any specific tool, because none of this stuff that's coming out this year with the AI solution is going to be around in a year or two. It's all going to evolve so fast that truly you need to learn how to understand how the fundamentals work and be able to adapt to tools and strategies week to week, month to month, and stay relevant as a fungible subject matter expert and not a non-fungible tool expert. Pause.
Exactly. I totally agree with all you said. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy right now trying to even keep up with all the developments in this space. I mean, if I think about what I was following a year ago, it's like, oh, I felt like I had a handle on it. Now it's like things change on like every day. It's something new. I mean, what was it? 2 months ago, everyone was talking about DeepSeek. You don't hear about DeepSeek as much anymore because all this new stuff's coming out. And I feel like I'm behind because I was working on a project last week, so I wasn't able to like see what the latest headlines in TechCrunch were. And I feel like I'm getting behind if I don't try to keep up on what the latest developments are, because to your point, Erica, it's moving so quickly. Like I've never seen an advancement in technology like there has been with AI.
John, that's why I host a support group. I host a once a month AI support group for people to come in and catch up together because it's so overwhelming.
Count me in.
So Erica, I want to go back and then we'll go back to John. And so how did you get your AI skills, and how did that kind of progress in your actual work?
Well, the first thing, and this is again, like I try to like put an asterisk on my advice, because like a lot of what, like the how did I do what I do, it's simply a personality thing. It's like, what do I do? I just really am interested in how AI works and messing with it in weird ways. Like, so if you don't have fun, I mean, 3 or 4 days ago, I spent probably 3 hours chatting with ChatGPT, having it argue with me and pitting its like capabilities and like figuring out how to make the most basic, confusing prompts ever to see how it responds, try and get a sense of what's going on inside of like the mind of ChatGPT by having it pit Pope or not. You saw my Pope Leto II thing, by having it
Yes.
show God Emperor of Dune Leto II, which I thought was funny because it's like Pope Leo and then Pope Leto. The big sandworm God Emperor of Dune is like invincible against all these various Marvel Comics characters, to see like, what does the logic of this thing do? And I'm like, what about Silver Surfer? That's all I say. I don't give it a prompt. I don't engineer anything. I just say it as plain and as sparse and as terse as I can. So I'm trying to see like, what's going on, and how, as this chat progresses, how is the memory changing? And if I'm like, well, have it fight Galacticus, and it's like, okay, but now have it fight Thanos. Have it like Thanos, but instead like Thanos is like he's suffering from heartburn because he just had too much Taco Bell. And like, what is the GPT like doing? And so I just sit and do this, or I'll try to do things together. I mean, I have copied and pasted more stuff out of Mural into ChatGPT and into whatever, and then back into Mural, like all this stuff, just figuring out how this all works, because like the specific tool, it changes so fast. Just like John was saying, it's like you're never going to catch up. I was just barely learning Replit, and then I learned about Lovable, and I'm like, I don't know which one to use. But then it's like, learn how Lovable works and like try some stuff out. I made some games for my teenager who's in the back room there, like to do whatever. I'm like, okay, now I know how this works. But then it's like, okay, this tool is going to be changed and evolved in a week. It doesn't matter. What I need to do is figure out, how do I get giant organizations to understand their internal like use cases and problems? And like, we could barely teach anybody how to like listen to Jobs to be Done or Blue Ocean or Lean Startup before AI. And now with AI, it's like, those are the only things that really matter now, is identifying your problems and your use cases and now applying tools to it. And now it's like, we have people saying like, hey, we've just turned on AI in Figma and in Miro. What should we use it for? And I'm just like, oh my God, like, why did you turn it on? Why did you turn it on if you don't have a use case catalog of your organization? Now you have no idea. You have no idea what to do with it. You need to take a step back and figure it out. So that's why, like, for me, like, I am into AI because I think it's fun and interesting, and I'll do it on my own as a hobby. And that's where it's like, I would have people say, get interested, look at what you do. Are you a gardener? Make a custom GPT that'll talk about like weather patterns and zip codes and rain, or like what to plant, whatever. Just do anything with it, because the tools are going to change. You need to know how to instantly like look like a Gordon Ramsay, right? I can look in a kitchen, see what you have, and come up with a meal instantly. But it doesn't matter what's in your kitchen or what ingredients you have. I know enough about kitchens and I know enough about food. I can make anything out of anything. That's the mindset. And we can dovetail that later into like finding a job. But like, I would literally rather have somebody just like show up and explain to me in plain words how a GPT even works than tell me about anything they've done with any specific tool.
Bravo. Go
First,
ahead,
we need
John.
to
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
I think Erica's spot on what she's saying. I mean, you need to tinker. And if I've encountered so many people in design and UX research at different meetups and groups, and they're like, they haven't even dabbled in AI. They don't understand it. They're afraid of it. And to your point, Erica, just learn to use ChatGPT and start there. But there's so many opportunities for you to like, there's webinars, there's videos online, there's articles you can read, you know, get a starting point, start small, and then build upon that. Like once you learn how to make a prompt, how can you transition what you're doing in ChatGPT to another tool that's more relevant to your job or your industry? And I think that's what's really important is that notion of you have to be like someone who's interested in learning because there's so much you need to learn. I'm learning every day on the hour. You know, just the other day for the first time, going back to Miro, you know, I was working on a project. I got to a point where, you know, I had all my stickies in Miro. And then I saw, hey, you can use this AI tool and it's going to categorize and do an affinity cluster for you. Well, what I did is I cut and pasted stickies and made a copy of it to try that first. And it is interesting. And this is what's really important is, you know, look at what the output is, because I was seeing them place stick. I mean, it was pretty good the way they organized some of the clusters, but some of them, like they had someone talking about how bad search is and like checkout problems. So it's like you still need to kind of be, there needs to be that human in the loop or human at the helm that's looking over what the output is. Learn how you can critically look at what you're getting from ChatGPT and you know, how you can use that and you know, maybe refine what you're doing. You know, I used it when I create presentations, I see a headline, I'm like, I really don't like the way that's worded. I'll put in ChatGPT and like rewrite this headline, you know, for this UX research report. And then it'll give me like 5 options. And I'm not necessarily going to take word for word that option, but it'll give me some ideas of how to, those are like simple, small ways that you can start to incorporate it into your daily life. And that's what you need to start doing.
Yeah, I always say AI is the spark and you are the fire. Like it might, one word from it might just generate that fire in your brain that lets you just kind of go.
And one thing I want to add to John. Sorry, Anne.
Go.
I love like what you were talking about with like having stickies, and then you can like in these tools you can like right click an affinity diagram or cluster or whatever. Most people wouldn't know when to cluster or affinity diagram, what it means or what it's good for. And so we're giving them AI, and they don't even know how to do it without AI. And now we're letting them do it with AI. That's my soapbox right now is that all the technical problems of AI have trillions of dollars or quintillions of dollars being invested into it. I don't think anybody who doesn't want to be an engineer needs to pay attention to the technology, because it's going to be like water out of your faucet. You just turn it on and it's there. I do not care where the water comes from or even know. It's clean, whatever. But like, do you know how to apply an affinity diagram or like clustering stickies and what you get out of it? Most people don't. And then we're letting them do it with AI. So now they're using AI for something they don't even know how to do. I think that's the biggest gap if we're talking about skills, job hunting, or whatever, is that AI is a force multiplier of what you already have. That's it. Right now, I truly do not believe AI enables any net new creation. It can enable what is it? Exponential force multiplication. But when you multiply something by a decimal, it actually will get smaller or negative. And so your AI is just fuel to what you already have. It can't change your trajectory. It can only make it go faster and further. And if you're not pointed in the right direction or you're pointed down, it's going to do way more harm than good. And again, even without AI, most people can't even do what they want to be doing or identify their use cases or identify their customer problems. And now we're giving them something that'll just take the problem they have, not the customer problem, like the problem they have, and multiply it by 1,000. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one, I've never seen a technology that is the solution looking for the problem like I have with AI. It seems like, and again, I think it's the hype of AI that everyone's like, how can we incorporate AI? And it's like, just go find a way to like use this in this use case without really thinking about what the underlying problem is and how's this really going to solve it. And that's where you start to get into trouble. You know, I've been reading a little bit about how they're using it how AI can help in therapy where a therapist isn't available. And I'm like, that's all good and well, maybe, but also what happens when someone's in crisis mode? You want the AI to take over. Didn't some senior citizen put in an AI about like how they can get more healthy? And basically it said that you're using up resources and you should just kill yourself. I mean, that was a couple months ago. So, I mean, we got to think through, to your point, AI is, it's a technology, it's digital, and I'm going down a tangent of putting in humanistic elements into AI and my concern around that as well. But to your point, we need to find out like what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and AI is not necessarily always going to be the solution.
Right tool, right job. I mean, it's so basic. I always love to strip things down to basics like that. And I think what Erica was saying is foundations, right? Like foundations should be mandatory in school, right? Like if we're going to incorporate AI into school, they're going to have to be mandatory foundations. But I think it's the same thing with work, right? I'm about to teach a whole bunch of free classes on basic conversation design foundations because people are jumping into agents and they don't even know how to write a conversation flow. And I don't think that makes for a good employee, period, right? Somebody with no foundational skills. So I think that's a great theme is, what are the foundational skills of X and how do I go get them? Well, the good news is it's never been easier to go out and get them, right? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
how many times a week I ask ChatGPT to create a mini lesson for me. That's probably my most common prompt is create me I'll see a post. I don't understand what they're talking about. Usually it's like Reuven Cohen and who's coming on the show, by the way. And I'll take his post, I'll paste it in there and say, what does this mean? Teach it to me and create a mini lesson. And I think that's probably what a lot of people listening should be doing, because if you're not a voracious consumer of lessons and learning and skills right now, you may not be employable because do you have your foundations and do you have the skills that people will actually pay you for? And it's like, if you don't make money or save money, why would anybody hire you? And what do you know about that? Right. So I think that's all kind of tied in a nice little bow. So I'm going to go back to Erica. And Erica, can you tell us a little bit, like when you were at Inuit and when you were at NASA and your job now, what was the evolution in how you worked with AI? And do you think it's telling kind of how different the skills are from just a few years ago to now?
Well, there has not been, hardly any actual official application of AI like in the work, like as a part of either embedding it into products or using it in the work because of the, like pretty severe reluctance and hesitation from, IT, central cybersecurity to allow this stuff to go back and forth. And so most of it has been either stuff that is like clearly like within the boundaries of safety or like disconnected enough from corporate or like whatever, private data where you can use the tool, or it's just been stuff that doesn't cross over between things that like are like work related and personal to like learn how to do it, because the fear that central organ like IT and orgs that control these tools have is it's grounded in reality, but it's way too severe, and it's not allowing for experimentation and sandboxing and like learning and understanding. And I think that it's been a challenge, and it's been kind of a disappointment because you can't, the people who control like whether or not you can start to use it at work, they're not really explorers, they're not really curious, they're not like looking at like, we need a safe way to do this, by any means necessary, let's set up these environments. They just like, no, don't do it. But the rest of the world and the way that this AI stuff is evolving, it's happening regardless. And so now it's kind of like, I haven't had a chance to really like use it as like a frontline primary tool for official things, which is a huge problem, because the companies that start to unlock that and that start to allow that, start to integrate it, and create these safe environments are the ones that are going to be able to move so much faster, harvest more talent, and start to do things that you can't do with like a pre-AI organization. And so that's where I think that the IT organizations and these people that control tools are like, they're undereducated on the safety and the way to implement it. They're undereducated on how to like assess an organization's readiness and the state of their data and their use cases. And so they're just stagnating. But this isn't like other technology advancements in the past. I mean, this is to like not have, do you remember when people like didn't have internet at their work? And it's like some computers just like weren't online, and then some got a modem, and then you had to get more phone lines. You could go without like a broadband enabled office in the like mid to late 90s, maybe the early 2000s, for years. And it didn't really matter. You don't have that time with AI. By the end of this calendar year, it's so funny. I see on LinkedIn like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. By the end of this calendar year, like all these like vibe coding tools, stuff built into Miro, Figma, Mural, like stuff, Gemini, all this stuff, it is going to be so comprehensive and complete. And every time there is an error or a thing or a hallucination, it's fixed. And like, it's going to happen so quickly. This would be like in 1999, wondering if you should get like broadband for your office and then waiting 20 years to make that decision. And then in 2019, getting a cable modem for the first time. Oh my God, you're toast. You wouldn't even be in business without like broadband in your office. If you're not an AI enabled organization by January 1st, I don't know what to tell you, because you are literally ignoring a step change in civilization that is rivaling Gutenberg's printing press. And at that point, if you want to like hand scribe the next Bible while we're cranking them out on the press, go right ahead. It's not going to work. But people can do what they want. That's how I see it. And it doesn't matter what the tools are. It doesn't matter what anything is. This is a cultural revolution on the scale of the printing press. The world has changed. It has. You cannot stop this Leviathan.
You know what is interesting about tools?
It's Prometheus bringing fire. The fire's already here.
We are on fire.
I can listen to you tell stories like for the rest of my life every day. But what I notice about tools, and it's kind of a little bit different, is that the startups, like I love chatbotbuilder.ai. It's one of my favorite agent builders. It's low code, but like if they want a new feature, they can implement it in 2 weeks, where the tools we use in enterprise are like barely chugging along and like are so far behind, and it's like Lovable, right? Like these little startups are rising so fast because they can move at the speed of AI. And the speed of AI, like a month is like 7 years, like dog years. Like a month in AI time is completely different than a month 5 years ago as far as advancement. So I think it's kind of interesting, because I always kind of am rooting for the underdog, and I kind of love that these startups can just rocket to the moon like that. So John, what are you? I know you said you're about to release a product, but what type of?
Oh, we're not. We're not even prototyping yet, but that's the
plan.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm curious what kind of AI work you're doing in your day-to-day at your job, because kind of the whole point of this is, the next round of questions are going to be, what should be people, what do we think the AI jobs of the next year or two will look like, and how can people get hired into them? So I'm curious, like for me, like I do conversation design, right? Like that's kind of one of the areas of AI where there's work. It's actual AI. We use LLMs, we use NLU, NLU is natural language understanding, natural language processing. It's an actual and rare, I think, design job where we're actually building AI products. And I think a lot of times I end up kind of debating with people online, like, there's using AI in your design process, and then there's building AI products, right? So I build AI products. I do voice agents, and I do chat agents, and I do agentic, and that's, you know, I don't think that's going to go away soon, but I think everything's going to kind of drastically change. And when I say soon, a year, I mean, it's so hard to tell. So I'm just curious what's happening at work for you as far as using AI and AI skills that you think will actually be something that gets people employed down the road.
Yeah, and I can speak directly around UX research and strategy because it is really having a big impact on research. I know there's been a lot of concern in the industry because there's been so many layoffs that, oh, we're all going to be replaced by AI. And I want people to understand that, no, you need to learn how to incorporate AI into your daily work. And I've done that exponentially. I mean, to Erica's point, like what I was doing last year to what I was doing today is completely different. Last year, when I do, desk research, I start with Google. Today, I go to Perplexity, and I can get all the information that maybe took a day in 10 minutes to a half hour. And then I'll comb through that information and find what I need for that specific project, whether I'm looking at like industry structure, competitive analysis, things like that. That's a great tool for all that secondary type of research. Like I mentioned earlier, when I'm starting to do, an ethnographic study, then I might start with ChatGPT and like helping guide me in creating my discussion guide. And then, I'll take that as kind of the starter, put into a Word document, and then, I'll refine that. Then I'll put it back through ChatGPT to check for any leading questions, biases that might be in there as well. So incorporating it every day, all the time, like everything that I do. But I want to put a caveat around it. And I know we talked about how companies maybe are apprehensive about adopting AI. When you're doing research and you're dealing with, consumer data, customer data, you want to make sure that the tool that you're bringing into, it's going to be safe. It's not going to necessarily be used to train that model. And make sure that it's approved by your organization. There's a lot of tools out there that are available, like Dovetail, right off the top of my head, is one that I'm thinking of. Notebook LM is a great one from Google. It's free. They claim that they don't train your data. I feel that it's safe. I did a lot of research on it before I ever used it. But yeah, I'm constantly using it every day in the work that I do, and then trying to find those new tools, like looking for, okay, what's an imaging tool that I can use to create new personas, so I don't have to go to Google and search for, what the images they're going to represent my persona are going to be. So it's made my work more efficient. And I think it's going to, really help in UX research in helping us get to, what we need to get to much more quickly, which is recommendations and strategies of directions. That's what our clients are looking for. And we're not taking as much time. And that's always been one of the biggest problems with UX research. Oh, research takes too much time, and it does. And I'm seeing new tools, like I think there's a tool called Outset AI, and it does large scale qualitative studies. And it will use the AI will be the moderator. Instead of going out and talking to like 30 people over 3 weeks, you could talk to 100 overnight. So, looking at those tools and how I can incorporate those into the work that I do every day. And then also, I did launch a cash forecasting product that uses AI. I'm now working on this RAG potential product, this RAG product with Habits for a Better World. So yeah, I'm looking for ways I can also design for it, but I'm using it every day in the work that I do. I
do a lot of RAG work. If I can help you, let me know.
Yeah, I might have to have a consult with you after
this. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a skill that isn't going to go away too soon to utilize that. Yeah.
And especially, I mean, from what I'm reading, if it can cut down on the hallucinations, that's going to be so valuable.
Yeah.
Because I've encountered it myself, where I've worked on something and then the output that I'm getting back is just gibberish. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't have any relation to what I was actually prompting it on. Yeah. So those are, if I can cut down on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I recently applied to speak at an agentic conference, and my topic is agents as a service. And I feel like RAG is one of those things where you can so highly specialize an agent on really niche subjects, and then rent that agent as people need it. I think that's going to be a huge part of our future is experts in our pockets for $12.99 a month based on very niche things or not so niche things, but things that take an expert that a lot of people couldn't afford an actual human to do. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't speak a little bit about the apocalypse of jobs. Erica, I think you have thoughts. I know I have thoughts. I'm pushing my son. My son's going to school to become an electrician. I don't think that's going to disappear. I can always go back to cooking. I think personally, as somebody who has kids in that age group who have to start making decisions, I pursue tech for sure. But also there are too many designers. There's not enough jobs. There's, AI is going to take over 50% of this and that and the other thing. And I'm making it my personal mission to kind of nurture juniors and try and help them get skills to pay the bills. But also it is really smart to have a secondary option where you're going to be out in the world using your hands to do something. But then who's going to be able to afford to pay you to do that thing if nobody has any jobs? So, Erica, take it away. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I have been like distancing myself from UX and design for like 10 years, and it's harder to do than it sounds. But like, I grew out of those skills and interest in that a long time ago, and my interest all went over into what I'm still going to recommend today, which is like the people and organization and like business strategy, business planning aspect of it. And so if we're talking about like jobs, like what are the skills? Like, I mean, I just said something the other day about like skills that that can't be done, by AI, right? Like if you're a massage therapist trying to expand your massage therapy practice, it's like, that's pretty safe. Like even I wouldn't say a robot's going to be able to give a massage in the next 20 years. That's great. Like we don't, that's like, and who would even want that, right? Exactly. Right. But like design jobs, like I have not like done anything that comes out of like a Sketch or a Figma or whatever. In probably like 5 years, and before that, it was only as needed. And I like John is saying kind of like that. The story John just told us, what I'm gonna like say now, which is like it's the skills and approaches of like knowing what to do as a person who exists in like your industry or like your business model of whatever you do, and then taking from what's around you and building something more out of it. But like you already kind of have to know. And so if I were to like say my 3-book trifecta of what people should be reading to future proof their jobs or have skills, it would be Clayton Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma, which started the like jobs to be done, like bringing that to the like mainstream. And Tony Ulwick kind of invented jobs to be done, but Clayton Christensen made it huge through the Harvard Business School and his books. So Innovator's Dilemma and any other Christensen book. The other one, my other 2 favorites, Blue Ocean Strategy, which talks about how you find like asymmetry of value by seeing like, what do people want? Movies, but where are they not getting movies? In the mail. Netflix. Then they did it again. Where are they not getting movies? Streaming. Netflix did it again. Both of those are red oceans now. No one gets the mail. Every single channel ever has like a streaming service. It's worse than cable. So like, I don't know where Netflix innovates. So what did Apple do? What is not there? Premium, A-list, super expensive streaming with Apple TV Plus. So they did find a little bit of blue ocean. So understanding blue ocean is the other thing that'll let you identify places where AI, no AI, it doesn't matter, because you're going to where people want to spend money but don't have anything to spend it on yet. And then the third one is still to this day, lean startup. If you're not reading Eric Ries's Lean Startup, you're not going to know how to experiment. You're not going to know how to pivot or persevere. You're not going to know how to do super like rapid hypothesis testing to make decisions and stuff. And this is stuff that AI can't do this because AI at this, until there's AGI, which I don't believe in, is not making the decisions. The person is, and they're using that. So you read those 3 books and now you're hireable because, Anne, it's like what you're telling people, like, do you know how to identify where money could be made, or do you know how to identify where money could be saved, and then use whatever you have around you? And I'll talk to this question where it's like, how do you navigate a future where there aren't enough jobs because AI can do so much more with just one person doing it? And it's like, well, you can't, you can't, like, the jobs are gone. Like, there are people who are not going to be able to continue in this field because either someone else is better and took the one job that used to be done by 20 people, or whatever else. And the comment, I don't know where this came from. If someone wants to Google it. I was just hearing about one of the automobile manufacturing plants. I think it was like the Fremont Toyota plant that then was like Tesla or whatever, but it doesn't matter. At one point, it was employing like thousands of people to work on the assembly line. And then they kept adding more robots and more robots and more robots. And there's like hundreds of people that still produce the same car. I think it was in Texas, actually. It was like the Nissan Rogue plant somewhere in Texas. I really do think that's what it was. But it's like, what about all those other jobs or those people who were replaced by robots? It's like, well, they're just gone. They're just gone. Like, it sucks. It totally sucks. Like, we're facing a crisis, a humanitarian crisis of the Malthusian trap of like, there isn't enough because the people with the money and the power aren't trying to look into renewable energy, universal basic income, all of these like leftist ideas that would keep society going. And so it's like, you want to keep your job, become a business strategist, become an entrepreneur, and I know how to identify where money can be made and then use AI to help businesses do it. But are you going to need a content designer and a writer and an interaction designer and a motion designer and a visual designer and a UX designer and a service designer? No, you don't need any of those jobs. They're gone. Just like those factory jobs are gone. A robot does 50 people's jobs and it doesn't get tired and it doesn't need to get paid and it doesn't sleep. So it really sucks. I don't know what to tell anybody, but I know that like the thing to do is to move as far away from specifics and tools as you can and way more into the human aspects of how do you identify a need that people will pay for, and then how do you come up with a solution that you can charge for, and who cares what the tools are. I don't even think designer is going to be a job title because you're not designing anything. You're identifying problems and innovating on solutions. I keep calling it a producer, like a movie producer. What do? They don't do anything, but they do everything. They don't direct, they don't act, they don't do the script, they don't do special effects. They produce the whole thing with all those other tools.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. I feel like I kind of have a little bit of a different headspace than a lot of designers because I've lived through owning a business that I depended on to feed my family and pay my mortgage. And that seasons you. It's almost like all the trauma made me hysterical because it's very traumatic to live through that. And you don't lose kind of that view when you go into a job, you know, it's about the money. And I think a lot of designers don't have that under their belt. And that's just one piece of that puzzle of exactly what you're saying is, you know, just that broad skill of coming in and producing. John, do you want to follow up on that question?
Yeah, and I think Erica's spot on. I would add to the books that she mentioned, I would add range into that. It's how generalists are going to triumph in the world.
Can you guys both put your book recs in the comments?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
range.
Yeah, range.
Sorry, John.
Yeah.
Range.
But I think that you know, when I think back to where I started in this space, I worked for a firm called Doblin, based out of Chicago. I don't think it's around anymore. But a lot of people came in and they had, you know, they had consulting, they had user research, they had contextual research, which is more like the secondary type research. But everyone kind of got experience in all areas because they wanted people to have these generalist skills. So it's like, you know, when I left and I was doing, you know, straight user research, people are like, well, can you teach me how to do secondary research? Because I don't really know how to do that. And you know, embrace like the skill set that's going to be more general in nature. Don't specify in just one specific area because the way things are changing, having all experience across the board is going to help you as you need, and we're all going to have to pivot in the future to a different skill set. And I think that's what's really important in thinking about like the job apocalypse. I mean, I think, yes, there are going to be a lot of jobs that are gone, but I mean, for us to survive as a society, there has to be something else that's going to be, give people employment and have a sustainable economy moving forward. Because at some point, all these people with all the money at the high end, people are going to stop buying stuff. People are going to stop subscribing to OpenAI's ChatGPT because they don't have a job. People are going to stop. Well, people already stopped buying Teslas, but things that people are going to stop buying because they don't have any income. You can't survive as a society no matter where you are in that. Where you are in society as far as your income level.
Right. Even like the Wall-E outcome, right, where we're just giant people sipping soda in front of a screen. Who's paying for the soda? Who's paying for the So I people always refer to that, and I kind of have to wonder the reality. I don't think that's the but I think it might get really ugly for a while with people not being able to eat. And I don't even know if my strategy of learn something hands-on in addition to your tech skills, I don't even know if that's good advice at this point, because oh yeah, I can cook, but who's going to go to a restaurant? People can barely afford restaurants now. So it's really terrifying. And I think grassroots movements, that's the word I was trying to find, will be the thing that might stand a chance to push policy to keep people eating and housed, because I think just those two basic things might be out of reach, and that's pretty terrifying.
AI school, though.
Exactly.
I think we've come down.
I think we get.
But I want to say, and teaching a conversational design, AI design course, that's teaching people skill sets and communication. We're still going to communicate. We've communicated through the existence of humanity, whether it was drawings on a cave to, talking with a user interface. So I think just having that ability to understand the structure of communication that you're going to be teaching them is another skill set that they're going to learn, that, conversational AI might evolve into something else in the future, but here's something else that is coming up there. You can leverage that skill set that you learned.
Right. And I think that open mindset is actually the main skill, right? But there are some people who are wired to despise change. I'm married to one. And change the breadcrumbs on the chicken cutlets. And it's like, whoa, I have to process this. Change on this magnitude is so hard for some people. And I think for them, the skill to probably chase is to get comfortable with change for a while. I don't know if it's through therapy or what, but I talk about this with Yadi all the time. Like, being open is kind of a foundational skill right now, and knowing that what you learned 6 months ago might be in the trash heap today, and being okay with that it's almost like a loss, right? Like, oh, I put so much energy into this and now nobody needs it. It's gone. So being comfortable with that sort of loss, and just being able to pick yourself up and be like, all right, what am I learning today? What's new? What didn't I know? And being cool with that. I think if you're not cool with that, you might not want to work in tech anymore, because I see it a lot in people who are extremely well known, who just can't wrap their heads around the pivot, who have worked for 30 years in the space and now can't get jobs. It's like, well, you're shutting it down. You're in denial. You're not embracing. You're not having an open mindset. You're trash. I mean, there are a lot of people who trash AI in general, and I listen to them. And if they say things that I think are valuable, I take it into consideration. But I think there's also a lot of influencers who take these stances and will just say anything for clicks. So I think it's really important for juniors to understand who to pay attention to and who not to pay attention to. And that's a whole other podcast topic, I feel like. But we only have, we have 10 minutes left, and I like to wrap up kind of like we wrap up meetings at work with action items. So what are some action items that you both think people can take from this podcast and go implement today, tomorrow, next week, next month to prepare?
Yeah, I think the first action item is education, and it can be in any form that we talked about today. But if you're lucky to live in an area that has a lot of like meetups or things that are meeting in real time, go to those where people are giving talks about AI and design, and meet people and talk to them. And then you're gonna get some guidance around like where there's the opportunities are for you based on your skill set, but then you'll also know where your skill set might be lacking. You need to improve on that or build on that. And then that's where leads into start to do some online education, take some coursework, like I said earlier, start small, then, take on something bigger and, get out of your comfort space. It's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes you're going to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. That's fine. It's trial and error. And that's what's really important. But you need to embrace this technology or you are going to be behind. And those are the ones who are going to suffer, that they're not going to be able to find work because, to your point, you're people don't want to change. It's not, you really don't have a choice at this point. It's like you either do it or you're going to be way far behind and it's not going to be good.
I think it's like the Who Moved My Cheese. I'm going to tell people to go read that, because it's like what we know is the cheese and it's been moved, and complaining or like resisting, it's like too late for that. But also, even if you were too early, like this is not something that is like the AI apocalypse and the job apocalypse. These aren't like occurrences. This is just the next step of our society's way of working, doing business, and like the technological platform that like underwrites everything we do. And what I think, if someone wanted to start taking action now, is to first of all read Who Moved My Cheese, and then understand that in 6 months, maybe 12 months, this idea of AI and AI being like a garnish or a thing you can do or not do, it's going to kind of go away, and it's just going to be embedded in everything. I don't think in 5 years, so let me say again, I guarantee in 5 years, you're not going to talk about AI, just like you don't talk about like central processing units and random access memory and RISC processors versus x86. Like nobody cares. It's just computers. It's in everything. My Subaru Outback has more computers in the dashboard than I did as a kid, and so if you understand that, like, very soon this stuff just everywhere, and so like what do you want to do and how can you add value or work or learn a skill or like learn how to, again, connect people who have money with people who have something that can be exchanged for money. We call it commerce, without getting too high centered on, well, how can I use AI or not use AI? Because AI is kind of, it's just the new word for internet. And there was a time, because I was so young in the mid to late 90s, where internet was an option, but then it just became not. And now it's like, again, that same Subaru Outback has like 3 different internet connections for the weather and the downloads and exit radio and whatever. No one even talks about the internet or the web. Can anyone even tell you anymore what the difference between DARPA and internet with a capital I and World Wide Web even is, and protocols? Like nobody cares. UDP, TCP/IP, nobody cares. As a kid, I love that stuff. You don't even hear about it anymore. I don't even know how anything works anymore. My 15-year-old eclipses me in everything. AI is going to be the same way. In a few months, in a few years, you're just still going to be doing business in like the world of the future. So separate out the tools and start looking at like, okay, if these skills are no longer required, if I don't know how to use Figma and Sketch and Abstract or Fireworks and whatever, what do I need to know how to do? Well, I need to know how to look at a population of people, understand what they need, what problems and challenges are they're facing, then how do I come up and like build solutions or innovate things or connect dots, and then I'll just see whatever flavor of the month tool is available. But you're not going to call it AI, because every single digital thing is going to be AI powered in the next 24 months, and it will no longer be a conversation. And there was a time, last anecdote, traffic signals, stop lights, stop signs, those were invented for horses. Those were invented for horse traffic, not cars. And the first like pedestrian like deaths in those was when someone got run over by a horse, and then cars came along. But we don't talk about the difference between, well, yeah, but like, is this like a horse stoplight or a car stoplight? Because it's just all cars. Streets are only used for cars and trucks or whatever. AI is going to be the same way. So I would say detach yourself from thinking that AI is like the Segway that you can or can't use whether you feel like it. It's not. It is a new general computing platform and a new utility like electricity and water and natural gas maybe, and then AI pipeline. And there is not, just like you don't say broadband. I said that the other day and I was like, oh, I had like I'm like, did I just say broadband? Am I going to say camera phone? What? It's like nobody says broadband. It's just everywhere. It's connected to everything. 5G, like Starlink, whatever. So that's what I would tell people is like, just stop thinking like a tool operator and start thinking like an entrepreneur, because that is the only thing that's going to matter, because now the tools we invested so much in are irrelevant and they might not ever be relevant again.
Love that.
So Manaz, we have just a couple minutes left, but I know you're sort of in the mindset of a lot of the audience looking for that job. Did you take anything away from what's your takeaways from everything you just heard?
Yeah, I totally agree what the speakers told us. And like, I think, yeah, like they said, we need to change our mindset to coming up with ideas to solve problems rather than just like going through the tools and learning how to work with them. Because without any problem, we don't need any tools. So we just need to like first recognize a problem that people have and try to come up and use these tools. Then we can recognize the tools that we need, that we want to solve these problems. Then like you go and find the tools. So yeah, that's
Erica,
what I got. Like
I'm sorry, Manaz, but I like Erica comes back. How do you learn that? Where do you how does one develop? Like it seems like that's something you develop, that you can't really take a class. So how would one go about acquiring that skill?
Those skills I was talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I truly like go like the books that we mentioned, even like the range book. I wasn't familiar with that book, but I looked it up really quick with AI summarizing it for me. Like learn to think that way, because this is like different podcasts. We could do a separate podcast, but like the world we all live and work in is based in, go Google this, or actually don't Google it, go chat GPT this, Frederick Taylor, the scientific management of like a worker, a factory floor, a stopwatch, and a boss watching everything. That's like all going away, that whole model. And so it's like people should be learning how to generate their own value and their own income. And I'm not saying everyone needs to go out and be an entrepreneur or like barter or trade Bitcoin, but this idea that like you get trained to operate a machine and then work there for 30 years and get a pension is gone. Like you need to be a portable, fungible asset that can do a lot of things and solve a lot of problems. I mean, here's my jobs I've worked in reverse order. I worked at a diabetes company. Before that, I worked at a space agency. Before that, I worked at a virtual whiteboard facilitation company. Before that, I worked at an accounting company. Before that, I worked at a VoIP phone Skype clone company. Before that, I worked at a cybersecurity company. And before that, I worked at a diploma lead generation company. And it's like, I don't specialize in anything. I just know how to look at people who need something and then be like, what can we do so that they have an affinity for us because we are meeting that need? And it can work in any company, in any industry. It doesn't matter. And the tools don't matter. And the technology doesn't matter. And it's all in those books. You just can't think that you can be looking for a job. Like imagine, do you know, last thing, do you know how much time when I was working into it and money that organization spent training hundreds of designers on Abstract and Zeppelin? Okay. Where are those skills now? Where's that money now? Right?
Right.
It's the same thing. And then instead, what if we had been training them? And we were, I mean, Intuit was great, But what if we had not done any of that or minimized that and done way more on problem framing, identifying, jobs to be done, identifying like market segments, understanding how to like create a category, understanding how to look for asymmetry of value. Now you can go anywhere and do anything. But I'll tell you what, there's a whole bunch of abstract and Zeppelin and sketch and fireworks experts who don't know how to do that other stuff that now don't have any skills to apply because we don't use those tools anymore. You divorce the tool. That should be the name of this podcast. Divorce from tools.
Yeah, I
Wow.
love that.
I don't know how to wrap up after that except to say thank you. And I hope everybody out there is on their way to good, happy things, and they can stay fed and stay housed. And thank you, John. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Manaz. And we will see you at the next one where we'll be talking about your portfolios and critiquing portfolios to hopefully get you that next job. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.